everyone, and welcome to the Omega Metroid podcast from OmegaMetroid.com. My name is Andy Spiteri, joined by, well, Doominal Crossing is here, which is fantastic, but by God, after months and months of schedule mishaps and me bailing on shows and Dak being busy, the two of us are here together again. Dak, my friend, how are you?
I know, man. I've been playing hard to get, and I apologize for that. Yeah, man, I've been good. It's good to have the squad back. It's good to
Oh,
be back with you, and of course,
yeah.
the three of us. Yeah, man, it's actually wild. It feels like it's also been a while, but also it feels like it hasn't been. It's just like right back at it.
Right.
So
Well, some people
so
ask
that's
me,
cool.
like, they're like, hey, is where's Dak been? And I'm like, what do you mean? Because I feel like I talk to you all the time. So it's like, he's right there. But I guess, yeah, on the actual podcast, it's definitely been a minute.
That's the thing too, is that I do all the website stuff, so like
Yeah.
I work on the site every day. It's not like I haven't been around. It's just I've been busy on the weekends.
Yeah.
I was in Toronto, I was in Nashville, I was at a bunch of shows, I was a bunch of out of town kind of things, and just our schedules didn't align. And then obviously I've had classes on Monday nights, which is kind of our like backup day, which I haven't been able to use. So yeah, it's summertime. Dak's got to spread his wings, but it's good that we got our schedules to line up again.
Yes.
And
It feels like
and
we're
yeah,
whole once more.
yes,
And
yes.
not only that, but in addition to hearing these gentlemen's lovely voices, I am looking at their lovely faces as well. And we're trying something new, trying something a little bit different, something that we
Yeah.
haven't done on this show before, but something that we have been doing quite successfully over on the ZeldaCast, and that is recording our mugs while we talk about Metroid and uploading that to our YouTube channel. So the goal here is that eventually, as soon as probably this week, assuming all goes well, you'll be able to watch this full episode with video over on our YouTube channel. And we
Yep.
even have if you don't have time to watch like a whole hour plus worth of Omega Metroid podcast content, that's okay. We do have some people that are working on clipping some bits in part two into a little bit more digestible chunks. So lots of cool reasons to head over to our YouTube channel and check us out, which is youtube.com/Omega Metroid. That being said, we've been talking. How you doing, Doom?
Doing pretty good. It's been quite an eventful weekend. Thursday, we streamed the new Mario Kart tracks, the new Wave 2 that just dropped. We got 3 stars in all the engine classes on streamed. And then a couple nights ago, during the 36th anniversary of the original NES, or technically the Famicom Metroid title, because we're talking Japan here. But on the 36th
Right.
anniversary, I decided at the last second to do a Metroid stream. But I want to do something a little weirder. I didn't want to do a traditional Metroid stream. So I left it up to my new Discord to choose, and they unanimously chose Metroid Prime Hunters. And so I played Hunters for the first time in well over a decade, probably since like middle school for me. And I gotta say, despite the fact that the campaign is, I mean, let's be honest, it's a fairly mediocre
It is
campaign
what it
experience
is.
in terms of Metroid games goes. I'm not gonna lie though, despite all that, man, I had so much fun going through that campaign and just reliving that nostalgia and just going over these things that I forgot about. And like, I don't know what it is, but there is a certain charm about Metroid Prime Hunters that I just absolutely adore. And I cannot wait to complete
Well,
that game next
well,
time I go
save it.
live.
Save it for when we map Metroid, because our rumor has it that the next Mapping Metroid segment could possibly be from that game that you are talking about. So we are bringing back Mapping Metroid after I actually just looked. Do you guys know how long it's been since our last Mapping Metroid?
Wasn't the
I have no
Six
last
idea.
one
months.
Skytown,
Yeah,
right? It was
it's been
Skytown.
it's been a minute. But before we get there, just really quickly want to you mentioned that you were streaming. I was streaming a lot of Metroid Prime as well, and I powered through it this weekend. But one thing that I woke up to this morning, and I don't know if this interests you guys or not, and if it doesn't, we could just move right on. But there is a Splatoon 3 Nintendo Direct. So I think it's fair to say at this point it doesn't look like Splatoon 3 from Splatoon 2 is like a giant evolutionary leap. But I guess maybe we can see a little bit about. I feel like there must be another hook or something like that we don't know about this game yet. So I'm hoping to see that. I think I'm probably still going to pick it up, but I do think that it probably could use something like this, where it's like, okay, this is why you should buy this and not just keep playing Splatoon 2. Did this pop your guys' radar at all?
I feel like we kind of all expected like a big Splatoon 3 direct before the game dropped. These are usually traditional. I mean, I believe both of the last Splatoon titles had kind of a self-contained direct, but I mean, as for my personal thoughts, I've talked about it in the Discord. I'm pretty sure I've talked about it on the podcast before, but despite the fact that I am a big Splatoon fan, I even have some merch set up like over there off camera. I just honestly I feel nothing about this game right now. I'm sure it's gonna be great. Like I'm sure if like I had a copy in my hand and I started playing it right now, I'd have fun. But right now there isn't enough new information that's gotten me excited to where I'm like, okay, I need to play this over the last Splatoon games that I already have. And
Right.
so I'm hoping that this game, or this next direct, I mean, gives us something more substantial than, oh, you can now pass the eggs in a salmon run. Which, to be fair, is a pretty cool addition, but not worth $60 alone.
Well, I mean, isn't it going to be like 30, 45 minutes? So I would hope that it's going to have all the information and more that you want. I agree, though. I think it's a game that, like, when it comes out, I'll play it, but it's not like I'm sitting there anticipating it.
Right.
But I've kind of fallen off for Splatoon. So, but I'm excited because I like the multiplayer aspects of it. So we'll see. I didn't really get too much into the campaign stuff. I'm gonna play Splatoon. I'm gonna play online. So we'll see. I am interested in playing it, and I'll probably check out that direct because it's probably the first one I've been at least moderately excited for out of all the directs that have been announced this year. So that's
you weren't excited for the Xenoblade Chronicles 3 direct? You've probably been busy playing that game.
Oh, I actually have already beaten it. I played it more than Dread. I part of me wants to like give it a chance. I just can't bring myself to do it because I know I'm probably not gonna like it. But I hate to like knock on something that I haven't tried. So
I think you might like the gameplay, but I think you'd hate the story. Because like
I know I'm not
the
gonna
story
like the
grates
story of
on
the
me, and I
character.
feel like my tolerance is a little bit higher for that
I
than
know I'm
yours.
not gonna like it. Yeah, I know I'm
Yeah.
not gonna like it. You said, by the way, going back to Metroid, which is what the show is about. You were playing Metroid Prime, I would assume, in
Mm,
anticipation or like for this episode.
yes.
You were playing it on Dolphin. Were you playing it on controller, or you? I assume you're playing on controller or mouse and keyboard. You're playing on controller.
I'm
Okay.
playing on controller. I am.
Um,
Yeah.
I just sent my hard drive, my external hard drive, into the shop to get fixed because it stopped working. I learned a lot about hard drives when I dropped it off to this guy. Very interesting stuff. Not to bore you with the details, but it seems like I had maybe dropped it at one point, but then like after you drop it, it doesn't necessarily stop working immediately. It'll stop working like weeks after from that drop, which
I
I think is
see.
what happened. Anyway, I was making a game on RPG Maker on that drive, which is why I want it, but also all my Dolphin files were on that drive. So my Prime hack setup, my Dolphin, game states and all of that are all gone.
Oh
So I had
well.
to reinstall all of that stuff, reinstall
Ugh.
Prime hack, get all that stuff together. Honestly, not the worst thing, but I'm excited to get back into that because Prime hack for Metroid Prime is the best way to play Prime and Trilogy and Metroid games in general. It's so good, very clearly made for mouse and keyboard, and it's held back by its controller status. So I'm looking forward to getting back into that. I did play it the normal way for this, just because I didn't have it set up in time. I just like loaded it
It
up.
was hard to go back to the tank controls. I will definitely give you
It
that.
can't go back. That's like literally the one
It was
thing.
tough.
Like aside from like the fetch quest at the end, which I don't really mind too much. The thing that really holds the game back are the controls. So to fix that makes it a near perfect game, which it already is.
Hmm.
So yeah, if you haven't checked it out, anyone listening, I feel like I've said this multiple times. Prime Hack, it's the way to go. It's the best way to play Metroid.
Well, let me ask
Definitely
you guys
check
a
it out.
question and bring it full circle, and then we will get on to mapping Metroid here. But is there a similar kind of hack for like a DS emulator where you can play Hunters but with a controller? Because that would be a complete game changer for me if
I
that
feel like that's
existed.
I feel like that's Spire fans
I was about to say
department.
Spire Fam
Maybe
as the
maybe
answer
Okay.
to
that
that.
Unity remake I would probably be the closest thing that you would get to that. But as far as I'm aware, there isn't really
He's
a
probably typing right
modification.
now. He probably just sensed that we were talking about Metroid
I feel
Prime
like he
Hunters.
just I feel like he just dropped a video in the Discord that I was talking to him about. about emulating it on PC and being able to use either regular controls or mouse and keyboard. And it like translates that. So
Right.
I'll have to take a look because I remember him saying that, and I bookmarked the video so I can go and set it up because that sounds awesome. And obviously,
Yeah,
a
that sounds
remake of the
awesome.
game
Yeah.
would be great.
One thing
play
I
some of
will
those
say
online.
is I personally thought the game controls a lot better on the Wii U gamepad because that's how I was streaming it, of course. But
Right.
I think
Easy.
it controls significantly better on the Wii U gamepad, just being
Okay.
able to have those much bigger buttons. But keep in mind, I also didn't mind the original control scheme as well. They weren't optimal, but I was able to work with
Right.
it. So you might vary with that. So
Okay, well, I mean, if you are out there and slide into my DMs. But we've been talking for long enough here. Let's get down to the brass tacks and let's map some Metroid. Our first Mapping Metroid show in 6 months, and we are going to one of my favorite areas from Metroid Prime. I think it's one of your like top areas from the whole Metroid series, Dak. I don't know anybody that has a bad thing to say about this area, and that, of course, is the Tallon Overworld. And I just want to right off the bat here, I want to just right away just let people know we will not be talking about the downed frigate section because in a future Mapping Metroid, we're going to combine that with the prologue for Metroid Prime and just do a Mapping Metroid on the Frigate Orpheon. So we're not going to be talking about that, but we will talk about everything else in Tallon, including the Artifact Temple, all that good stuff. So just wanted to throw that out there if you're looking for that and you're just like, why are these guys talking about music in Tallon Overworld and not bringing up that track? That is why. So you will have that to look forward to on a future episode of Mapping Metroid, and maybe one that's not even that far away because it's still fresh in my mind. So just wanted to throw that out there.
I would be down to do it pretty soon. Not only because, again, fresh in my mind, but also it's such a good area, and it's very like there's a lot of contrast because obviously we'll talk about the beginning portion of the game and then when it returns later. So yeah, I'm excited for that, but I'm also excited to talk about some Tallon Overworld.
Yes.
Sans Orpheon.
Yes.
ready to sink my talons into it.
Oh man, how do we just boot this guy out of here?
You got it out of your system, so that's fine.
Okay, so everybody knows how this works. Mapping Metroid. We're going to talk about the general layout of the area. We're going to talk about some specific rooms that really stood out to us, some specific enemies, if there's any specific expansions that we really like. We'll talk about the music. We'll talk about some of the lore and story elements that go along with this particular area, bosses, of course, and yeah, we'll dive into all that here. But I guess that we should start with like the general area of first impressions. I don't think I will ever forget the first time that you step off out of your ship into the Tallon Overworld and it's raining and there's like a stillness and like that soft piano just kicks in. I got goosebumps right now talking about it. It gets me every time. It's God, just the world. It's such a perfect introduction into everything that Metroid Prime I feel like was trying to get across. And the Tallon Overworld, I mean, I guess its general function in this game is to be like a hub spot because it connects to every single area except for Phendrana, which I was in Phendrana playing this game on the weekend and needed to go to Tallon, and I was like, okay, well, no problem. There's got to be an elevator here somewhere, and there wasn't. But other than that, every single area in the game you can get to from the Tallon Overworld. So it does just a really good job of being that centralizing hub that you can really feel like this area almost is like the key to Tallon IV, this planet. And even though the area isn't like massive, it feels like there's very distinct sections of it as well. Mm-hmm. One thing that kind of took me by surprise, not by surprise, but I guess I just didn't remember it, is like in the first I would say like my first 5 hours of playing Metroid Prime, because I was not playing very well, so it took me probably it took me probably like 8-9 hours to beat Metroid Prime. So I'd say in the first half of that,
it's not bad.
I don't think I was in Tallon for more than like 30 minutes, like total. It felt like you don't really get to spend a lot of time in there, mostly because it is that hub that kind of leads you from one point to the other. So it kind of almost leaves you wanting more a little bit, which I think is good, because like one of the things in some areas of Metroid is like, God, I can't wait to get out of Meridia, or like, please let me escape like the Torvus Bog or whatever, right? Like, so I think that Talon just really strikes a really nice, I don't know, balance between that. But
Yeah.
yeah, amazing hub world and very distinct and very memorable for the short amount of time that you're in there.
Yeah, agreed. I didn't think I had the appreciation for it because, well, obviously I appreciate it, but Metroid Prime and Metroid Fusion are my first Metroid games. But very clearly, when you step into Town Overworld, it's very reminiscent of landing in Criteria and Super,
Hmm.
which is, very much how like Metroid Prime is like in a lot of ways Super Metroid in 3D. And it has a very similar vibe. Like you land in this open area, it's raining, it's kind of your hub to a bunch of different places, but Town Overworld more so. And the Overworld, what's great about it is I like to think about it as less of an area that has less to do, but more so a transitory bridge area that actually feels more than just a point A to point B kind of place, which I think makes it such a good area. Because yeah, it's not like as in depth as a Fendrana or Magma Caverns, but it's better than just a straight hallway or an elevator. And not only that, it leads into the whole theming of the area, the town overworld. It's built like a root system that stretches
Yeah.
over the planets, which is very much aesthetically what the place is. It's a like a rainforest full of trees, full of fauna, full of roots. So I love that kind of like play on that. And pacing wise, it works so well because the game starts off really hot. Like you're hot dropping into a frigate. You're taking out pirates. You fight this massive boss. You chase Ridley down to the surface of the planet, and then the game slows down. You land, and you're like, I've lost this dude. Like Ridley could be anywhere, and you realize that this is going to be a bigger ordeal than it seems. You're not just chasing Ridley to where he's going, and the game really like it's a very nice pacing point to get you started, get you rolling for the rest of the game, which I really love about it. It's obviously beautiful, like you said, super
Mm.
immersive. You look up at those raindrops for the first time, looking out the gray, overcast, stormy skies. The gray, green, and the bluing, radiated, like lichen and all that. Like it's perfect. Such an awesome backdrop, and like you said, it really gets the story going, the game going. It's light on story, but it sets the tone and
Hmm.
the
Yeah.
feel of the game,
Yes.
which is incredibly important. And you're right, you don't spend a lot of time in there initially, but you're just Metroid style. You're gonna come back and check out a lot of this stuff. You're gonna walk by something like, I know I'm gonna be able to come back here. I have to come back here later, and that's obviously very true of the rest of the game and all Metroid games. So, yeah, it's such a perfectly well done area. It's so essential Metroid Prime, but it's so essentially Metroid, and obviously it's important to the game structurally. But I think it's really important to the overall tone of the game, and they honestly really nailed it. Like you said, it's one of my favorite areas and moments in any Metroid game. Just landing there for the first time, even after you
Hmm.
just had that sick landing at the frigate, and Samus jumps off the ship and looks around. You got the fanfare playing, but I think this landing even more so is more iconic and absolutely love it. So yeah, those are my initial like thoughts and feelings about
Really
the
quick
area.
before you go, Doom, I completely agree with something you said, Dak. I think it's like, I think that this was maybe like the most important, like first impression of the Metroid series in a way, because like,
Mm-hmm.
when this came out, a lot of people were still iffy on like Metroid as a first person shooter, and like, is it going to be
Yep.
good? Is it whatever? Man, the first time that you step on Talon and you take it all in, and like there's all these
Washes all
branching
that doubt
doors
away.
that you can go through, and the incredible like the foliage, the water, like I think it immediately puts people at ease, and it's just like, okay, this is going to be a Metroid experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for me, that Talon 4 landing sequence, this was the moment I became a Metroid fan right here.
Mm.
Because the only Metroid title I played before then, outside of, being introduced to Samus through Smash, was a little bit of Metroid 2. But this was like the first title I really sank my teeth in. And it was at this moment where I knew that I was getting myself into something that I had never experienced before. And I really like something that you mentioned, Dak, and that's the contrast between this and the Frigate Orpheon in particular. Because the Frigate Orpheon, like you mentioned, it's this broken down, derelict ship. You're constantly like, fighting these intelligent enemies that
Dead
clearly have
aliens.
a vendetta against you. You're fighting all these mutated experiments. It's very mechanical and artificial. And
Yeah.
Hmm.
then you contrast that with this beautiful, lush forest that hasn't been overtaken, by any of these technologies or anything like that. It's totally out there in the open. You have some remnants of the Chozo civilization, but even then, it's very spiritual in nature at the same time with a lot of that Chozo technology.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that phase-on corruption also hasn't entered the surface yet, and so it feels like the one safe zone of the planet. And and again, I would be broken if I didn't bring up again our boy Kenji Yamamoto, with the incredible Planet Tallon IV arrangement
Oh, we'll
that
get
opens
there.
up
We'll get there.
this planet. And yeah, it just like you all said, it sets the tone of the game so well. And it's I would put it probably in like my top 3 gaming experiences of all time, landing on Talon 4. It's that important to me.
Yeah, the way Criteria and Talon just mirror each other with the rain coming down is just absolutely fantastic. We'll definitely get to music because I have a funny story about you, Doom, to tell when we get there. But
Uh-oh.
let's talk about some specific rooms that we really enjoy here, and I think it's probably appropriate that we talk about the landing site itself, because I feel like the landing site is kind of like a microcosm of what Talon is, because that area in particular is like a hub to 4 or 5 different doors that you can go through. Like, it connects to the Artifact Temple, it connects to the Crash site, it connects to East or West or whatever part of town that you get to Magmore in. And actually, one thing that you do a lot in Metroid Prime, at least I did a lot, is you kind of come back here like frequently enough during your adventure, and I feel like that's kind of noteworthy, because like I feel like in many Metroid games, I'm thinking like Metroid Prime 2 and not 3, but definitely 2, definitely Fusion, maybe Zero Mission, a handful anyways. Your ship is kind of like out of the way, and like you have to kind of make a point to go back to your ship if you want to go there. Whereas this one I feel like is very central, and it's like, okay, well, like I'm going through this hub world in Talon, and I might as well go to my ship because it's gonna recharge me and save my game and stuff like that. So I feel like that was always accessible and comforting. I mean, the actual like room itself is fantastic. We just talked about it. The rain and the waterfalls and the foliage everywhere is just like so incredible. But there's one thing that I really love about it, and it's like this sense of like safety that you get in that room. Like, I can go here, I can explore freely. My ship's right there if anything goes wrong or anything bad happens. And yeah, just like a very strong room that represents, I think, perfectly what the overall area is all about. So that one sticks out to me immediately. I've got a few more here, but we can kind of go around if you guys like, or however you want to do it. I can keep going.
Well, I thought that was a really good example that you brought up, especially with how its utility serves as kind of the bridging point between those different kind of quadrants of the area. Especially because, like, if you think about it, literally the room to the space jump boots is right behind the ship, and you don't even know that until like an hour into your adventure.
Yeah, that's actually funny you bring that up, because I want to say 2 things about that. First, one of the things that always stuck out to me, even when I first originally played this game, is like there's a bunch of doors you can see from the ship, and like obviously there's like 1 or 2 that are very like just out of your reach. Like, oh, I'm gonna get you. But one of the first tricks I ever learned to do in a Metroid game, and I don't think you can do it on the trilogy version, but the original version of the game, you could do a scan jump and use this scanning something to jump up to that and skip like that area, like to get to that higher ground, so you get the space jump boots early. And I remember learning about that, I think, on like Game Facts, like
Oh
way back
man,
in the day.
That's a throwback.
yes.
So that was one of the first things I had learned to do, like, and I wasn't good at it, and like I tried it. I don't even. I think I might have gotten it once. I'm like, all right, I did it, and then that was it. But that's something that you can do. And like I said, I think I looked it back up again, and you can't do it in the. I think it got patched for the trilogy version, but it's in the original. So
Huh.
if you have a version of that game, I don't remember how it works exactly. I think you like lock onto one of like the sacks, like it, or like one of the scan points that's like kind of higher up in the room, and you use that to like do like a side dash, and jump up there and get the space jump boots early. So that's a cool part that I always remember from that room.
Man, that's you want to hear something funny? I used to, when I was like 12, 13. I used to go on like the GameFAQs forums all the time. I think about 5 years ago, I wanted to see if my account was still active, and it was, and there was like the same people posting that were posting when I was like 12
Just
or
never
13.
leave.
Yeah.
Terminally online.
So yeah,
Nice.
fantastic room. Really good example of like what to expect when you get into Tallon. One of my favorite rooms. I have two like just absolutely like rooms that I love in this place, and the first is the Great Tree Hall. This one is like such a cool. Again, it's kind of like a hub because there's like three different doors that take you to three different parts of Tallon 4. And I kind of have like a soft spot for like those big tree rooms. It kind of looks like Avatar or whatever, and like the room is so long and it's like divided too. Like when you have the portion underneath with the like the ice beam doors or whatever. And there's also like kind of the hidden part up top. But I think it's like a really cool room. Again, the utility is there. It kind of leads you wherever you want to go, and just the aesthetic of it. I love those big tree rooms, man. I'm a sucker for the big trees.
Yeah, before we move on, I'm wrong. It wasn't GameFAQs, it was the Nintendo Insider forums.
Oh
If
no,
any of
that's a
y'all
throwback.
were on that, Andy, were you on the Insider forums?
No, I was not.
No.
I was GameFAQs. Yeah.
I wasn't on GameFAQs, but I went to it sometimes. But Insider, I was on, and I'm pretty sure that's where I like learned it or like got a link to it there. So if any of y'all have been
Right.
on Insider, I was Chain Chomp Master 30 or CCM 30 back in the day. So shout out to anyone who was on Insider back in the day,
Hey,
because that's where Camp Hyrule, that's my jam. Anyway,
Brainstruck on GameFAQs. Maybe
yeah,
I'm still
yeah.
there. What
Uh,
forum were
what
you on,
was
Doom?
yeah? Where were you on?
Oh, I was a fellow insider as well. I was
Alright.
a Rotero.
Rotera. All right.
I remember getting into a lot of really silly arguments with people, and
Oh man.
I don't know. I would love to reunite with some of those guys and have a beer though. I think it'd
Yeah.
be fun.
Yeah.
That's such a throwback. I think I was in one of like the last Sage classes before this forum shut down, and I got access to that little secret forum, which was pretty cool. Great Tree Hall, that's what we were talking about.
Yes.
This room I remember mostly because it reminds me again of like a Super Metroid like vertical room. You have to
Yeah.
climb, and it just has that kind of platforming. I don't really have much to say to it other than that, but it's kind of like a late game kind of room in some ways that you get to mid to late game. It has a spider ball track, if I
Yes.
remember correctly,
Yes.
that spiral one that goes up on the side of the wall. And then yeah, that's what I remember. Every time I think about that room, I think of it as like a quintessential like Super Metroid climb
Vertical
kind of
hallway.
room.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
There's also that
go
door
for it.
that's behind the tree, and we'll talk about this later. But there's an expansion there where you need the X-ray visor for. But like, I
Hmm.
challenge anyone listening to this to tell me that you did not try and jump on the tree to like get to that door before you got the visor, because I've played this game more times than I can count. And I was doing that on Saturday. I was like, I'm almost there, and I was falling down and whatever. So yeah, I love this room.
One thing I actually really love about the X-ray visor platforms is before you get the X-ray visor, technically after you get it too, but you can actually see the invisible
Mhm.
platforms because the rain will be splattering on top of it. It's such a
Yeah.
cool little retro detail
It's
that just
awesome.
immerses you in the world so much more.
And you know what? You know what? I noticed that too. Um, After I got my X-ray visor, I was just like, "There's got to be an invisible platform." Oh, look at the rain! It's falling or it's landing on it. It's something here. So yeah, I love that room. And actually, speaking of the X-ray visor, I want to bring up another room that I think is like absolutely like awesome, and that is the Life Grove. And
Yes.
it starts off as the room
Love
that
the
you
Life
actually
Grove.
get the X-ray visor in, but you quickly use that to break out, and it's like this giant. I don't even know what it almost looks like a chapel of some sorts in this
Mhm.
incredible, misty, kind of foggy room, and you have to fight a bunch of Chozo ghosts in there. And again, there's like big trees and kind of platforms going up the trees. It looks so awesome, and like you have the awesome puzzle in that room to get the artifact of I want to say the artifact of Chozo in this room, which makes sense. But it's the way that this room looks, and with I don't know. It looks so incredible, and it's like you. It kind of again it speaks to why I love the Tallon Overworld, because it just looks so like pure and like I don't know. It looks like a sacred kind of room, and it's like this is awesome.
Yeah, I love the Life Grove. It's one of my favorite rooms I think in the whole game
Hmm.
because it's a place you only go to like once, pretty much, and so it has that like just I don't know this feeling of like mystery to it and a little bit of charm because it's like something you go to, you hit it once, and you can look forward to it in a way. I always did, and it is the only place that you encounter the Chozo ghosts, like have an encounter with them. Obviously, they show up at the Meta Ridley fight when they like at the end of that, but it's the only place that they show up outside of Chozo ruins. And I personally love the Chozo ghost encounters, so like fighting them again in the Tallon Overworld is really cool. You mentioned it's like a chapel. I believe it is. It's some kind of some religious spot for the Chozo, but just like quintessential them, like it's
Hmm.
built into the land. It doesn't overtake it. It's very much intertwined with the land itself, which is absolutely indicative of who the Chozo are as a culture, as a people. But I think it's just such a quintessential like early 2000s like room in a game. Like it's blocky and geometric, it's dark and moody, it's like misty, you can't necessarily see all the details because you probably don't want to because you'd see the grainy textures, but they do it in such a way that like the less is more and your imagination kind of fills in the gaps, right?
Yeah.
And it's such an awesome open kind of arena, which is perfect. Like if there was like a multiplayer aspect to the game, that would totally be a map, I think, which I can say a lot about another area in Town Overworld, which I haven't gotten to yet. I love the Life Grove here. Like you said, you get the X-ray visor, which is such a cool add-on for the game. So yeah, I love the Life Grove. Obviously, it has a dope name, but it has that kind of like air to it, this mystical kind of feel to it
Hmm.
because it's such a late game area. It's very out of the way. It's you get the X-ray visor there, you got an artifact there, so you do have to go there for the end game fetch quest. But it has a lot
It's
of
very
anticipation.
satisfying fighting those Chozo ghosts too with the X-ray visor, because you
Yes,
can
yes, it's
finally
cool.
see those buggers and
Mm-hmm.
pew, blast them
Yep,
away.
I love the Life Grove.
Yeah, there's no hiding this time.
Yeah, suckers. Okay, well, I've thrown off a couple of rooms, Dak. I think that you had a room that you wanted to talk about, so I'll throw it over to you.
Yeah, there's really only two more that I want to mention, but the one I really do want to mention, obviously, is the Artifact Temple.
Yes.
So, Artifact Temple it's one of the major landmarks of the game, not just the town overworld. If it's not the Down Frigate, it's the Artifact Temple. It's so scenic, like
Oh.
such crazy vistas. Like when you walk across the bridge with the glass sides and you can see out into the canyon. Obviously, the rain's there. You get that change of music, which is absolutely incredibly beautiful, and you get to walk out onto the temple area, the temple grounds, and of course, it is the site of the Meta Ridley boss fight, which is awesome, which is perfect. I know we're going to talk about that more, so I'll save it. But it's such an incredible area because it's I really for me like that's the first introduction aside from like the Chozo ruins, but like that's like the first kind of introduction of like real Chozo. Like the Chozo used to live here, obviously came here a lot, and the Chozo ruins it's changed a lot, right? Like a lot of like Fendrana drifts, it's been overburdened by snow and frozen over. The Artifact Temple kind of looks like how it probably was when the
Mm-hmm.
Chozo were still inhabiting it, right? So it does feel like you kind of step back into time when you go in there, as opposed to the other places where you run into Chozo structures and architecture. It's an incredible. It's totally beautiful. Again, very immersive, blissful. Like it's just like the landing zone in a lot of ways, and it's honestly a kind of a breathtaking place to go to for the first time. And I still one of my favorite places to go to because it's again very pacing wise. You slow down. You have those couple lore entries. You walk in. You drop off your artifact or whatever it is, or the artifacts at the end of the game. You get
Right.
an artifact there. So yeah, I love the Artifact Temple, and this is also a place I always thought would be such a cool Smash stage, which again I could tie into the
Mm.
boss fight that happens here. But I mean, like it would be such a cool map for any kind of multiplayer, and it's
Absolutely.
an
All
awesome
the
place.
lasers firing from the Chozo statues is
Yes,
a oh.
that's a stage hazard right
Mm.
there. Like that, and that I want to talk more about that, but I'll save it for the boss fight section. But yeah,
Mm.
Artifact Temple, one of my favorite places in any Metroid game for sure.
You know, it's totally appropriate that for our last episode of Mapping Metroid, we did Skytown because, and we mentioned this on this episode, but if you look at the Artifact Temple and you look at the first landing site in Skytown, they're actually intentionally modeled very similarly. So if you actually look up when you land in Skytown, it has that same like green visor window. It has that same type of escalation risers that go to the second level. it's such a cool throwback to both of those areas. Then, of course, the landing site also mimics the Chozo artifact on top of that, and there's just so many cool connected details there. But of course, that's a separate game entirely. The Artifact Temple is, of course, just such a gorgeous area, and I love that they allow you to visit it well before that Ridley fight. It gives you a taste, like, hey, keep this in your mind. It kind of reminds me of the golden statue in Super Metroid. Like, hey, you can't go here yet, but keep this in the back of your mind. This is going to be important for later.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You guys, I don't have anything to add. This was on my list, of course, too. Just a breathtaking, incredible room. The architecture, the music, the stillness of it, I absolutely love. One thing that I like from like a mechanical standpoint is, I think that like you've kind of mentioned like the fetch quest or whatever a couple times. I actually like really like that in Metroid Prime because I feel like it's a really good way for a 3D game to encourage you to like it really accentuates the idea that exploration is like the key focus of this game, which again is like putting yourself back in that time where, you know, Nintendo was like, it's a first person adventure and it's about exploration, right? It kind of like helped me kind of ease into that idea of like, yeah, okay, like exploration really is the key here. And I think that Prime 1 did it the best, and Prime 2 and Prime 3 kind of had something similar, but I don't think it's ever been as good as it was in Prime 1. So I always kind of liken that with the Artifact Temple, and like what a really good job that it did in kind of presenting that, and presenting like, this is what you have to do, this is what you're going to be required to do, is like go and explore. Like even in Super Metroid, it was basically just like beat these 4 bosses and come back, whereas Prime in the Artifact Temple in particular is like, no, you need to get to know Tallon IV and explore this planet and really uncover its secrets before we're going to let you fight anybody. So I always really appreciated that about the Artifact Temple. And then on top of everything else that you guys said, you know, it makes it one of the best rooms, I think, in Tallon IV. By pretty easy. It was also a great Metroid Prime pinball stage too, by the way.
Yes.
True facts. I slightly disagree. I think Corruption is actually the best example of like kind of the end game fetch quest. But even so, like I totally agree with you how in general I just really enjoy these. It's also something I enjoyed about Wind Waker as well. Totally separate topic there, but yeah, I think the reason why I love it so much is because there's nothing more annoying than when you get an absolutely sick upgrade at the end of the game, but then you barely get to use it and then you roll credits. But in Metroid Prime, it forces you to use all of these abilities, including those late game upgrades, most notably the Phazon suit, best suit in the series, all together, and you just get to go exploring the world with your new movement abilities, you know, going through all of these enemies that, you know, used to give you a ton of trouble, and now you can just steamroll them just effortlessly. And that, I think, is what makes the fetch quest so unique, and why I think it works so well.
When we do the Phazon Mines Mapping Metroid, I have a story to tell about late game power up that I actually did use for once in that area. But I wanted to keep talking about the Artifact Temple a little bit, but I do want to mention one quick area here, and we can kind of go into it as much as we want, or save it because it's like kind of sort of part of the Orpheon, kind of sort of not. And that is the Frigate crash site, which is a ginormous lake that is literally blocking you from getting to the frigate. Has those annoying flying pirates that I just hate.
I love that moment. I love it.
And this room is actually notorious because it has like the 3 worst enemies in the game all at once. It has the awful flying pirates. It has the awful I want to say they're like, I want to call them Jezebels, but that's not right. But like
the Gel Zaps.
Gel Zaps. God, those things are awful. And it has the Aqua Reapers, which we'll talk about when we talk about enemies in here. But like literally all the worst enemies of the game are like right in this one area, and like it's hard to see, and it's kind of a pain to navigate across without the gravity suit. But I kind of like it for that because it's challenging, and it's certainly a memorable room nonetheless. So I thought I'd give it a little bit of love, even if it can be a frustrating room sometimes.
I love that room. Aside from the enemies and all that, just that moment where you show up there for the first time. It's like, because every time I play Prime, and especially the first time I played it, I got there obviously way before I had the gravity suit or anything like that. Like, you uncover this area and you see this like massive structure in the back, which you piece together as the frigate. I think the first time I played it, I hadn't pieced it together in time. So I was like, what is that all the way over there? And then these pirates, I'm like, oh, gonna take them out. Nope, they fly away. I love that moment so much because you know, like, I'm gonna come back here. And I want to check out that thing in the distance. Like, I'm gonna get there. And I absolutely love that moment. It's, I don't know, it's always has stuck with me. And I'm glad you brought it up because the only other rooms I really wanted to talk about were the Talon Canyon and the Root Cave,
Hmm.
which I don't have too much to say about, except I want to get to the bottom of why the Chozo have half pipes all over the planet, and specifically why they have one in a rainforest, which would totally get super wet and slick, and you'd slide all over the place. But
Maybe they
and the
can turn
root,
into little balls, and
well,
they like to have
why
fun
would they?
too.
I don't know.
The
I
Chozo
wanted
are
to.
base Pro
Yeah.
Skater 2 enjoyers. That's
I
why.
guess that's the first half pipe, and it's before you can ever use it, and you're like, why is this here? And then the root cave I always remember because that's where those beetles show up from the ground, and I always feel bad because I'm like, bros,
Uh,
I'm gonna melt you, and it's not, I don't even kill them I think half the time because I just like I
no.
feel bad because they're so they're not even worth my time. They're like ants compared to me, but. Aside from that, yeah, I love the lake area, the entrance to the crash site and the crash site itself, and then going into the down frigate. Just very memorable area for me every time.
I really like that thing you mentioned in the crash site about how the pirates they don't fight you, they
No,
fly away, they run away, they're
he's
scared. That's like the only time that they ever do that in the game, and that's just such a little cool, subtle story detail there, where it's like, oh, these guys were just chilling, and you actually just caught them off guard. They're just like,
You know
and
what?
so
That's funny. I always thought that they were flying away to go like warn somebody or something like
that's what
that.
I thought. I don't think they're scared.
Yeah.
possibly that too, yeah.
I
But I
always took
just
it as like, oh, Samus is
Samus is here.
here. Let's
Ah.
go tell. I guess they don't
Yeah.
have like cell phones or anything. Like they can't just
Yeah.
report in. They have to go
Let's go
physically
write
tell
a
someone.
pirate
you guys have
data
cell phones,
somewhere.
right?
I always thought it was a little taunting. They were like, because like anytime you play the Prime games, you can hear them making noises at you and like chirping at you. I always for me, I always interpreted it as they're gonna go tell someone, and also like, peace, like we're out, like we're not even gonna fight you because you can't even
Literally the
chase us.
meme where it's just like,
Yeah, like that's how I
Got
always say it,
wings? Didn't think
because
so.
when you fight the pirates, they're always chirping at you. They're always saying something. They've got an attitude.
but yeah, that whole room is just such a cool storytelling device because not only do they fly off, but like you said, there's the crashed frigate, which I believe it's been a while since I've played Prime, but I believe you can actually scan it, or something that says that it's the frigate. I can't remember if you can do that or not, but either
Should have
way, and
tested
then
that. I'm not sure.
but yeah, you start to wonder if that's just a background structure. But if you look very closely, you can see the door.
Mhm.
Or you could just check your map as well and see that there's a door on the map as well, and be like, "Oh no, that is an area that I'm going to revisit later." Plus, you also have the broken phazon container as well. Just there's so much subtle storytelling in this room alone that's just so cool.
Yeah, it's a great room. Yeah, definitely the canyon is another like interesting hub area for sure. So lots of areas in Talon. I feel like it's a theme that have multiple like exits that you can take, which I mean I guess does make sense since it's like the hub world. But yeah, let's. Do we have any more rooms that we want to talk about, or should we move on to some of the lore that is present in here as it is?
I feel like we've been talking about rooms for mad long, and we gotta get
All right.
going.
Okay, let's get going.
But
Well, luckily,
but
okay.
there is one room. I don't remember the name of it, but there's like one alcove room that has like filtered light coming in from the top. There might be an expansion there. I wish I knew the name of the room, but it has like this dispersed like light shining in. It's really nice. I think it's like an
I think
alcove
that's the
of some
space jump
sort.
room.
Is it? I think
Yeah,
there's an expansion or a
Yeah.
pickup in it.
That
Anyway,
might be the space jump room. Does it
that
have a roof
that room
over it,
looks.
or is the roof? Is there no roof?
I think they're like as a partial roof, and that's where like the light kind of
Yeah, I think that's a
looks
space. I think
in.
that's a space jump room.
Very nice
Um,
room. Anyway, that's all I've got.
all right, so we like to talk about the lore and what like these areas add to the overall story. I don't know that there's a whole lot of specific lore for Talon beyond like the general story of the game, because this kind of feels like the most untouched area of the planet in terms of like the corruption from the Phazon, which is ironic since it's right over the impact crater. But I thought this is kind of cool. I'll just I'll read this and then we can move right on. This is straight from the Metroid wiki. So it goes like this: the prosperous Chozo colony on Tallon IV prophesied their own destruction, foretelling that the worm would threaten them and that Samus, or the Entrusted One, would come and encounter the worm, and a lot of that you kind of get from the Chozo lore that's present in the Artifact Temple. So just like some kind of cool like little bits and pieces that you can learn about the Chozo, and obviously you can infer a lot about them from like their the Artifact Temple, which is a monument to that civilization, which obviously gets destroyed at the end of the game. But like I said, there's not like a ton of lore stuff, and in fact, most of it comes from the Artifact Temple. But there are a couple things that stick out to me. One, I love that which we'll talk about, I guess, in detail when we talk about Ridley. But I do love that like the lasers come and like just blast him away. It kind of makes me feel like hopeful that maybe like even though they're gone, like the Chozo still have some agency over their planet.
Well, the ghosts show up. The ghosts show
yeah,
up.
yeah, at the end.
The ghosts show. So I always thought that was literally the ghosts like taking over the temple and using and like bopping them down, because the ghosts do show up, and then like the laser, like the eyes turn red and the lasers shoot. So like you finally have like the ghosts on your side, because very clearly like they're defensive until they realize, oh, she's the one,
right? Fighting to eradicate this planet. Yeah, I like that little bit of symbology. That's just kind of like we're taking back this planet. I've always really liked that, and I always one thing that I really like is that like I said, in terms of the other areas in this game, this area seems like it's the most like uncorrupted or uninhibited, or just I don't know, it just seems like very special. There's lots of like rooms that feel, I don't know, like there's lots of rooms that feel like at one with nature almost, and there's probably some kind of analogy in this game about how like Phazon could be some kind of allegory for civilization or something like that, but we won't have to get down there. No, but
I think you're right there actually, but I think that's a lot of what works so much about the Tallon Overworld, is that even though the impact crater, the Leviathan, literally hit right there, and sure the Chozo like seal it up, which is like that's the story of the game. They seal it up, they spread the artifacts around, they build a temple on top of it so they can contain it, but it took them a little while to seal it up. And so the effects of Phazon spread across the planet, but it shows like the testament of like how strong nature is, that like despite that, the Tallon Overworld's still lush, it's still, the fauna's still there, very obviously radiated and irritated, and you can see like one of my favorite things about Prime is like you're walking by like again like a lichen wall, and you can see like the blue radiation, but still how like nature will keep trucking. It will out survive whatever you throw at it. But it is interesting how like that's the impact. It's not just the impact crater; it's the impact site of the Leviathan hitting decades before Samus arrived, and what the Chozo had to go through to contain it. And obviously, that's a big part of the story, is how they did not survive that ordeal for the most part. They either died or they left, or they died they went down with the ship, right? And even still, the Tallon Overworld was able to adapt, and there were some changes to the local wildlife and fauna, which circles back to when
probably
Samus
exacerbated
arrives.
too by those pesky pirates in their mines.
Well, that's the thing too, is the pirates then also show up and they get all involved as they usually do, which is always fun. But yeah, that's a testament to how strong kind of the planet is, and which again is a big theme, because Tallon itself has this massive scar on it from where the Leviathan hit, right? Like it's very like the game doesn't really handhold you through this. It's very like it doesn't expect the player, I think, to be very dumb. It shows through action, through how the place is built and what you see, in very little bits of lore of the story behind the planet, and that filters into what you experience in the game. So
it lets you know how much of the story you want to know about it. If you're curious about what's going on, the game knows that you'll be able to find it, and if not, the game will just, hey, that it's clearly not important, just keep on playing.
Yeah, so just really, really effective in the way that it tells its story. Let's talk about some of these enemies that are present in the Tallon Overworld. The first two enemies, and you'll probably agree with me on this, Doom. When I think of the Tallon Overworld, the first two enemies now that are absolutely burned in my brain after like an entire weekend of Metroid Prime Pinball are those Triclops and Burrowers. Those guys are everywhere. Actually, I don't even think there's like that many Triclops in there.
I thought the Triclops are only in Magmore.
They might be. They might be, now that I say it. But like because I was playing so much Metroid Prime Pinball. I
was about to
literally
say,
wrote
like,
down for enemies. I was like, Burrowers, Triclops. These guys are in Tallon. And yeah, I think you're right. I think they're only under the grates in Phazon and then
Yeah, and then
mines and in
the
Magmor.
burrowers, I believe, are in Magmor, and then there's the ice burrowers in Fendrana, if I remember correctly.
Well, the burrowers, I don't know if I got their name exactly right, but those are the ants that Dak was talking about in that one room that pop up.
Oh no, those are the beetles. The burrowers are the spider
Beetles.
ones.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
that's the one I'm talking about. But yeah, so those two are now who I think of when I think of Tallon, which is ironic since neither one of them are even in there very much. But one enemy that really sticks out to me, and in fact is probably the enemy I think about most when I think of this area, is the blood flowers and the sap sacks, which are like the like praying mantis kind of things that shoot out acid at you, and there's usually like the big yellow sacks that look like they're full of honey or something right by them. I always actually try and avoid shooting those sacks because I feel bad, like I'm messing up nature. Do you? Well, I mean, if I have to, and the ice beam gets them in one blast, which is kind of satisfying.
Well, you gotta shoot the blood flowers. Those things
you definitely gotta shoot the blood flowers.
Actively hostile to you.
Yes, those guys are pretty brutal. But I will never forget though the first time that acid hits you and it's like and just melting on you. Man, that was an awesome moment. The first time I played Metroid Prime. This is completely unrelated actually, but when I was streaming Metroid Prime, a couple of my Zelda pals were in there watching who never had played Metroid anything, and I believe it was in the tree grove, and I was in that room and something lit up and you saw Samus's reflection and they were like, whoa. So pretty cool moment.
Whoa.
Yeah.
As a human in there.
Yeah. So yeah, these blood
Whoa,
flowers.
Metroid has a face.
Metroid, not a robot.
I think it's really interesting because I don't think it's ever explicitly said, but I always kind of assumed that the blood flowers were related to Flagra, despite the fact that there's no blood flowers in Chozo Ruins. So,
it's the one that survived the sand.
Yeah,
the evolution took its course. I love Flagra, by the way, one of my favorite.
Awesome boss.
Absolutely dope.
There's actually not a bad boss, I don't think, in this game.
I agree with that. I would say for enemies that I always think of when it comes to, obviously other than the beetles, and you have Geemers, which are technically not Zoomers or whatever, but they're like the same thing. Or
it's pretty cool seeing them in 3D though for the first time.
Yeah, and like they have a very similar like gameplay loop, which I always think is fun. But I always think about the weeds that slow you down whenever you're in like morph ball mode. Or and I think they're like Venom versions as well, the red tipped ones.
Yeah.
But I always think about that because when you first start playing Prime and you mess around in the overworld landing site, there's that little like water basin and like rock you can morph ball into. I think there might be an energy tank over there. Or there's something over there, and you run into those roots immediately. And they slow you down. You can like shoot them obviously to make them go down. I always think about that because I'm like, who is the developer who came up with this? Like, it'd be fun when you're in morph ball mode if you just slowed down and slowed to a halt. That would be fun. But it's not even like a big deal where I was ever really bothered by it. But I always think about that, and I always think about the little wiggly guys. So that's my favorite. If they're considered an enemy,
I think they are.
Yeah, I think what's really interesting is a lot of the plant life throughout Metroid Prime itself, but especially in Tallon Overworld, it feels a lot more sentient than typical plant life. And we were talking about the blood flowers, but another thing that sticks out to me is the blast caps, the mushrooms that'll actually explode if you get too close to them, which, I don't know, it feels a little bit counterintuitive there for your survival mechanism. But nonetheless, they will just straight up just yeet you if you get too close to them.
Yeah.
There you go. I mentioned them earlier, but I'm going to mention them again. Those damn Aqua Reapers, rather. And the regular ones, too. The regular ones are okay, but, oh my god. The ones in the water just flip-flopping around and just in your way constantly. Golly. There is... You guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure... now that I'm thinking of it, I don't even know if it's in Metroid Prime 1, but I wanted to say that there is an enemy that is in like a small little alcove room, kind of like the one that the space jump is in, and I thought it was in Tallon, and this enemy only appeared in this one room, and it was kind of far away, and you had to scan it in order to complete your logbook. And now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know if it's in here. I was looking for it when I was going through the game, but I never saw it. If any of you guys know what I'm talking about, or anyone listening knows what I'm talking about, let me know. But I was kind of had my eye out for it, and I looked a little bit on Metroid Wiki and didn't really see what I was talking about. But I swear I'm not crazy. I think that enemy exists, and I thought it was in Tallon, but I guess not.
Well, I know there's the ice streak bats in Fendrana that I believe they disappear after you get the spider ball. Correct me if I'm wrong, somebody, but those are like the only ones that I can think of off the top of my head.
I'm
Let
not
us know in the
sure.
comments about your
Yeah.
obscure enemies that only appear in one room. Let us know. Let us know.
I know something disappears after you get the spider ball, and we'll talk about that in a second. But before we get there, let's talk about the boss of
Yes.
Tallon Overworld. And that, of course, is Meta Ridley.
Woo! My God.
Very cinematic fight. Awesome fight. I will say, I think I'll stick by it. It's not my favorite Ridley fight, but I love the presentation of it. I love the fight. It's especially like the first like 75% is good, but the last 25% when Ridley's wings aren't working, then it's a brawl. Then it's like, this is awesome. So I love that part. Before, there's a little bit, there's just a little too much standing around waiting for him to fly around for me. Which sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. I feel like personally for me, like when I fight Ridley, I want to like have it like be that brawl, just because that's the style of Ridley fight that I really like. But amazing scenery, amazing stage for this fight. The music, of course, is awesome. The game has been building up to this moment, so I think it's a great payoff, and definitely one of the better Ridley fights in the series.
I have a lot to say about this one, so Doom, I don't know if you want to go first because I've got a lot to say.
All right, dude, you better go first, buddy.
All right, I'll make my thoughts quick. So I've talked about my favorite Ridley fight before, which is ironically the Samus Returns fight. Even though I'm of the opinion it shouldn't have been in that game, neither here nor there. Though this fight is pretty decent. I don't quite rank it as my favorite though, just because one, I don't think Ridley has enough unique attacks, especially in that second phase of the fight. I wish there was a little more variety. And also, I think he telegraphs his attack way too far in advance. Personally, I really like the dread method, where they'll still telegraph the attacks, but you only have so long to react to it. And I feel like those are more satisfying boss fights for me. I think Ridley goes a little too easy on you personally, but who knows? Maybe that can change in the rumored Prime remaster. But anyways, I'll hand it over to you now, Dak.
I have a lot to say about this fight. I love this fight so much. I believe it came up in like a Kiwi Talks where they talked about how you're gonna have like the canyon fight against Ridley.
Yes.
And I think you do get a little bit of that like in the intro where he swoops in and he flies through the canyon and he like, makes his big entrance, which I really love. And I remember I read an article not too long ago about Prime and how I don't remember who wrote it or what site I read it on, but they were talking about how like, oh, like this fight doesn't go into like their shared history and blah blah blah, like there isn't like a moment of impact, which I think like again this game doesn't hold your hand, and I what I really love about this is number one, the game obviously built up to this. I mean, but in a lot of ways, it became so much more, right? Like Samus chases Ridley down to the planet, but she gets involved in something that's way more important, right? Learns about what happened to the Chozo, learns what's deep underneath the surface of the planet, learns about having to take care of that and the effects that that's going to have over time. Ridley becomes kind of like a footnote in that way, which I think is fine because he leads to that. But then he comes back like Ridley is perfect at coming at the most inopportune times, and that's literally what he does. Like he shows up like, oh, I'm about to head into the impact crater, I'm about to get this done, take care of the worm, take care of Metroid Prime. Nope, Ridley shows up, and it makes sense because he doesn't just show up. There's a massive light show. A laser literally blasts up into the sky. Of course he sees it, and he's been flying around like he just like, oh hey, that's where Samus is obviously. He swoops in, the music immediately changes. He comes in hard, and he drops a bunch of bombs on Samus. He dips down past the ledge and then flies back up, blasting his laser around, just making a huge scene for no good reason, because that's Ridley right there. That's quintessential Ridley. I love this fight because I think I do agree, Doom, that he might have had a bit more move diversity at some moments, but I love the kit that he does have. Like, he has a multi-missile system. He's doing drive-bys with his bombs. He's blasting at you with his laser. He's doing jump attacks. He's swiping at you. He's charging you. Like, I love how they built on the classic Ridley fight and made it a very different, but also very fitting to the game. It doesn't bog down the player with any kind of like, oh, there has to be a moment. Like, nope. Ridley shows up ready to fight. Samus shows up ready to fight. They get down to business immediately. It's great. I get what you're saying with the pacing of the fight. There is a bit of like, okay, you're watching him come around, but I kind of like that as much as I also love Ridley fights where you're just spamming missiles until he dies. This I think is great because they could have just done that. They could have just had a fight where Ridley just sits there and just is a damage sponge. They could have done that. I liked how they changed it up and they did it differently. I think you have there's a lot more impact and it looks cool when Ridley's flying out in the distance and you see his massive like neon wings and you know he does his drive-bys. Like, it adds a little bit more depth to it rather than him just kind of sitting there and being a bullet sponge. So I do like that. Obviously, it's really cool how his wings burn away and he gets to fight you on the ground. That's a really nice shift. And the area destruction, he's blasting away at the artifact temple. Everything blows up. Like, it's so cool, so awesome. Like, Ridley does not care, respecting about the Chozo whatsoever. He blows that stuff up.
It's also a good way to, like, practically speaking, to get health too, to kind of lure him by like one of the artifacts. I think, you know what, Doom, I actually think that maybe I actually don't mind waiting for him to fly around as much as I do. I wish he had like a cool attack while he was flying around. Maybe that's actually more so what it is.
I like that. I like the missile drops, but I understand that. I still think his kit's cool.
It's more so the second phase where it kind of bothers me more because I'm more on Dak's side where I actually do kind of like how he flies super far away because there isn't really any boss fight in Metroid that's ever done that before or even since then, where the boss will just dip and you can still lock on to Ridley, but he'll just be way off in the distance.
You can still track him.
And then before you know it, he'll just rush in like an F-18 just...
Right. Like, I guess what I'm saying is, like, if he was flying so far away, but, like, all of a sudden he's like, boom, there's lasers coming at you, or, like there's a bunch of, like, something to kind of keep you moving instead of just, like, standing around, like, waiting for him to fly. But, that being said, I think that, like, everything else about this fight certainly makes up for the lack of moves or, like, the, you know, the pacing of the fight. Like, I think that the presentation of the fight is critical to it, and the presentation is fantastic. So
yeah,
it's certainly I think it more than makes up for any shortcomings in the actual Ridley fight.
Yeah, I should point it out there. Despite my criticisms, I still really enjoy the fight. It's super hype, and in my opinion, I think Dak, you agree with this as well. Best Ridley design hands down.
I was about to say. Best
so
Ridley
glad
design.
First Four Figures chose this design for their statue.
Yeah, I
it
got
looks
that
awesome.
statue.
Looks menacing.
It's sick. And I love that they could have just brought Ridley back like normally, but like they work it into the lore. He was rebuilt. And he just looks sick, and I love how his head is shaped, like it's so like sharp and menacing. His eyes, like it's so cool, and I think it does mix it up a little bit during the fight. Like there's technically I think kind of like 3 phases. Like the first phase, he's dropping bombs, he's blowing up the missiles. The second phase, he kind of works the laser in a bit more, and then you get to the ground phase where he does his stuff, and he has like the shockwave or whatever it is in the charge. And then obviously the music. I think it's my favorite Ridley theme. It's awesome. It's such a shift in the game's music as well. Like it's so very like contrasting, like everything else that's in the game. It fits his theme,
especially
his aesthetic.
This section. Everything in this section is so serene. We could probably. Do you guys have anything that you want to add about Ridley, or should we just transition right into the music here?
I just want to say one more thing. Is the end of the fight, which Ridley. He's beaten up, he's blasted back, and then the Chozo ghosts show up, and the temple comes alive, and they just all hone in on him, and he gets lasered. But my favorite part about this is he gets lasered, he falls into this cannon, and then he just blows up. Like, such an explosion that it can be seen from the top of the cannon, through the mist, through the clouds. It is absolutely incredible. And, like, again, Ridley has to go out he has to do the most, right? He has to show up with huge fanfare, music change, theme change, flies in, he's ready to go, and then of course he has to go out without not with a whimper, with a roar. Gets literally blown up like twice, and still survives somehow. That's
You know
my
what's,
man right there.
now that you mention it, you know what's really cool that I'm just kind of thinking is like, would Samus have beat him without those Chozo like coming and saving the day? I'm not sure.
Feel like because he was like pretty beaten
was
up
pretty
at that
done
point.
at
He
that
wasn't
point.
like putting up much of a fight in that
But
cutscene.
like maybe not. And thinking even in Prime 3 Corruption, when you're in the shaft and you're going down and you're fighting him, it's circumstance kind of defeats Meta Ridley in that scenario as well. And like Samus certainly, of course, damages Meta Ridley, but like the Chozo go and damage Meta Ridley itself. For everybody watching on YouTube right now, which I encourage you to do, we've got
His head fell off.
we've got a headless Meta
Oh,
Ridley.
no.
Oh my god.
You have carpet, right?
Yeah, he's fine.
Oh my god.
Okay.
Okay, well we had Dak grabbing a first four-figure Ridley statue, and his head just fell right off like the
head just
Chozo
fell
just
off.
blasted him away in the impact
back.
crater.
This thing is heavy, bro. Yeah, look at it.
Look at that
He's
guy.
So good.
Ooh.
Look at that guy. All right, I'm gonna put him back for.
Damn. Yeah. Be careful with him. Yeah. Food for thought. Food for thought. Because like you technically kind of defeat him with the Chozo's assistance in this fight. You technically kind of defeat him with the elevator, or not the elevator, but like the shaft in Prime 3, and you kind of beat like a weird mutated version of Ridley later in that game. So you never really truly put the finishing blow yourself on Meta Ridley. Food for thought. All right, Doom. You've been waiting this entire time, this entire show, for this moment. Now we're here. We are going to talk about the music of Tallon Overworld. And when I was, so I streamed for like 4.5 hours the other day. I was like, I gotta finish this Metroid Prime game before we do Mapping Metroid. And I beat it, and the credits were rolling. I was kind of doing some of this, like leaning back, taking the load off, whatever. And I look back up, and we're at the point of the credits, and the first name I see is Kenji Yamamoto. And I was just like, a couple of my friends from Zelda Dungeon, including Allison, were in the chat, and I was like, let me tell you about this Doominal Crossing guy. This guy absolutely loves Yamamoto, and if you, like, he is like a music scientist. So I know that,
I wouldn't go that far. I'm not a
you're more a
music
scientist than I am, but I really quickly, I just want to talk about some of the themes that, I'll give like my pedestrian, input on the themes, and I'll turn it over to you. I want to say, obviously the Artifact Temple music is absolutely incredible and serene, and but the piece of music that I really think of when I think of the Tallon Overworld is that first, like, the quiet piano that it almost sounds like you can hear the rainfall, and like the quiet, like, do 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 of Brinstar comes in. Oh my god, that's so awesome. That is such an amazing moment. And then, like, once you get the Spider Ball, that theme is gone, which is too bad. But then the actual Tallon Overworld music comes in too, and like, I don't know if I appreciated it at the time, but every time I hear it now, it has that like classic like Metroid Prime style synth to it, like the doo doo, and like
it kind of has the synthesized theremin kind of patch to it though.
When I hear
I can't whistle really good.
When I hear that, it makes me just like think of Metroid Prime's musical style in general, like for the entire trilogy. It, like, kind of makes me feel like very nostalgic. So I love that theme. I love the Criteria remix. The Artifact Temple is incredible. The Meta Ridley music is pretty good. And we're not talking about it in this particular Mapping Metroid, but also like the Down Frigate is incredible. So it's like the 5 bangers in one area. It's actually disgusting how awesome the music is in this area.
To be fair, I mean, we're talking about Metroid Prime, a game that is literally filled from head to toe with bangers, regardless whether it's just in the context of the area or if you're just listening to the tracks on their own right.
You go to Phase on Mines and you're like, this area, this music is okay. And then you go back
to
Tallon Overworld.
I love the Phase on Mines theme. Phase on Mines is a bop.
Whatever, though. You go back to Tallon, it's like, oh my god, it's like, god, this is awesome. Man, if they played that Criteria theme at the club, I would lose my mind. I'd go nuts. I'd be on that floor. Anyway, Doom, this is you've been waiting for this. Take it away.
Well, actually, I already talked a lot. Well, at least in regards to the Planet Tallon IV theme with Lacey Johnson, because this was actually one of the recurring themes we talked about, since it's appeared in multiple iterations throughout the series, most recently in Samus Returns. But yeah, we both agree that this first iteration, when you land on Tallon IV, and for many of the reasons that we talked about when we were talking about that landing site and kind of how it sets up the game, and a big part of that is not just the artistic direction of the environment and those storytelling moments, it's the music itself. And again, I'm gonna go on my little spiel here because it's so important to the very fundamental formulas of Metroid. But back in 1986, a man named Hirokazu Hip Tanaka had a quote that I'm just not a direct quote that I'm gonna spiel right here, but a summation of it, where he wanted to make the environment and the music feel as if it was a singular breathing creature. And this this first Metroid Prime game, composed by Kenji Yamamoto, and his assistant, whose name I cannot remember right now, unfortunately, but primarily by Yamamoto-san. I think this is the epitome of that philosophy of taking the music and combining it with the environment in subtle ways with the patches that almost make it like it's creating this gray area between the diegetic and non-diegetic worlds. You know, we've talked about the theremin pitches that almost sound like it's the whistles of the chozo. You know, a lot of these choirs that almost sound alien in nature. They don't sound human and stuff like that. You have the fauna, which almost feels like it's serving as the percussion. And there's so much, and all of this is up to interpretation, but all of that plays into why I think that, you know, the music throughout this area, and again, especially that Planet Tallon 4 piece, just works so well as not only a storytelling device, but just a piece of music in its own right. Oh, hey there, kitty.
We got a cat on stream
here.
Cat. Zora, we're recording the Omega Metroid podcast here. Get out of here.
No, I want more kitty.
It's gone now. Sorry. Continue.
Oh no, that was it. That was actually perfect timing. I just finished my little spiel there.
Well, I feel like I don't know. I expelled so much energy for the Ridley talk that now I'm petered out.
Well, that was pretty intense when his head came off.
The statue really took a lot out of me. All I want to say really is, because you guys already kind of covered it. Yes, the music is awesome, great. I think we can all agree on that. Obviously, the Artifact Temple, gorgeous. You got like the harps and the strings with the choir in the background. Kind of like it's perfect. And obviously, the Down Frigate themes, both the ambient and the main theme, which we're not talking about that, but beautiful. But I do love how you have Tallon Overworld and you have like the Depths theme, which is like you have the ambient version, and then you have like the banger, like the bop, which kind of is like similar to how Phendrana Drifts has the main theme, and then the Depths theme, which again, a little more synthy, a little more, has a bit of a beat to it. It's like it's kind of like it's like what you would listen to while you're out venturing out there.
Can you imagine? I know we're not talking about Phendrana, but can you imagine if you were at the club and Phendrana's Edge came on? Oh my god. I would go berserk. I'd buy the bar a drink.
I would be bopping in the club. Everyone else would just be stopped. They would just be staring at me, just like, "What is this guy?" And I'd just be like, "Let's go."
But yeah, of course, the Meta Ridley theme is mad good. But yeah, I think a lot of this stuff is, and I'm no music expert, so I don't have the words to really describe how much I like this stuff. But like the Artifact Temple theme always like makes me like reminisce about a place I've never been to, a time I was never alive for. In terms of like the Chozo being there and all that kind of stuff. It just has such a the melody and harmony behind it is so incredible. And then I love that like the do 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 do, and you just got the Depths theme going and that like breakdown in the middle with that like single like synth playing on its own. Like it's really dope. It has that classic, like a lot of the classic Metroid Prime motifs in there. Very groovy, higher tempo. You got like the cymbals in the back, like perfect stuff. So that's the thing about what makes Metroid so good is it's not just like the gameplay or the setting, it has the music as well. Like that's what makes it such a perfect area.
Everything working in harmony together.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. All right, let's do some housekeeping here. Of course, in the Tallon Overworld, you collect the space jump boots. Sorry. After you get the boost ball, you can come back here on your second visit and you can grab them. This is the actual point, which is kind of a little bit of a pain in the butt because you're all the way in Phendrana and then you got to go all the way back to Tallon and you got to get those space jump boots and then you got to go all the way back to Phendrana after. but that's okay. As I mentioned earlier, you get the X-ray visor in the Life Grove, which also is the same room that you get the artifact of Chozo, and of course you get the artifact of Truth in the artifact temple at the beginning of the game. I didn't have like a ton of expansions that really stuck out to me here, except for the one that we kind of already mentioned earlier, which was the Great Tree Hall that has the invisible platforms that you can get to once you get the X-ray scope, or even really before you get the X-ray scope if you are an eagle-eyed adventurer. Nothing else really that sticks out. There actually isn't a ton of expansions in here. There's 9 missile expansions, 2 energy tanks. One of the ones that I always remember for some reason is in the landing site when you turn into a ball and you roll through those little squiggly things that you were talking about earlier, Dak, and you can get some missiles there. So that was one that sticks out to me. But yeah, I don't know that this... I would even actually maybe suggest that there aren't like a ton, maybe like a half dozen expansions in this game that really stick out to me as being like, oh, that was like really creative and like I had to work to get that expansion. I think that most of the expansions in this game are kind of just like seek them out, find them, and solve like maybe a little puzzle before you get them. And I think that definitely applies to Tallon Overworld. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing, but yeah, it doesn't really have... That's kind of like the Metroid Prime games in general. A lot of these expansions, when we get talking about some areas, we're just like, oh, you had to crazy shine spark, do this, that, which obviously isn't, a thing really in Metroid Prime. But yeah, that's not really a bad thing either, I don't think. Any expansions stick out to you guys?
Not really, no. Honestly, of all things that stick out to me, it's that twirly little spider ball track. That's like the big set piece for me in terms of like how you use your abilities.
Right.
I agree, and I'm not like a completionist when it comes to Metroid games, so like I usually don't retain a lot of them where they are. I just need what I need to complete the game. I remember the artifacts that are there, which how can you how can you forget those? So
you can't.
Incredible. You can't, because you need them. It's like when you play Donkey Kong 64 and you're forced to play those 2 arcade games at the very end of the game, before you get to the King K. Rool boss fight. You need to do it.
There's a hack for that, by the way. You can, I think, is it Jetpack? Yeah. In Jetpack, if you stand at the edge and you shoot like into the screen, it will shoot on the other side too. So you're effectively invincible if you just stand there and shoot. I learned that playing Donkey Kong 64. So there you go. Food for thought.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
This is the first time I've learned this information. I love Donkey Kong 64. It's literally on my wall right here. Like, and I did not know. You know how long it took me to beat those arcade games? Forever.
Oh yeah.
The first time I played as a kid. I didn't know.
I would have to see the exact spot, or like I'd have to see the room to tell you exactly where to stand, but I remember looking. I'm pretty sure I looked it up on GameFAQs.com actually, and you stay there, you shoot, and your bullet will go through. It's like Pac-Man. You go on one side of the screen, and you come in the other. So like your bullets are there. So like nothing can touch you. It's awesome.
Wow.
All right,
that is blowing my mind right now.
Well,
wow.
What a note to end on here. So we've talked about the Tallon Overworld. We've mapped it sufficiently. An absolutely incredible area. One of the most, I honestly think like one of the most important areas in Metroid, because it's your first, I know that you have the Orpheon, but this is really your first like main area and the first 3D Metroid. It was very much laid the foundation for what this game was going to be, what the feel was going to be like, the aesthetic, the harmony, as we talked about, and of course this area does it so well. Just a incredible area that, I mean, we didn't even get to a really big part of it because there's so much going on in this area that we decided to save it for another show that we'll do. So I mean, like I think when I think of Metroid Prime, I think a lot of us probably think of like Phendrana as the best area, and I think I'd probably say that it is my favorite area, but like, man, Tallon Overworld is right there with it. And frankly, all the areas of Metroid Prime are awesome, but there's something just really special about Tallon to me, and it's I'll never forget that first time, that feeling, stepping off that ship, and the stillness and the rain and the music. Like, it just it was incredible. It was incredible.
Yeah, no, I think you nailed it. I think we covered a lot on this area, just which really goes to show how much there is to talk about and appreciate and love about Talon Overworld. It's like, I mean, like there's that like one art piece of artifact I think that was tied to like Metroid Metal or whatever that like then they did the remix and there's that like panoramic view.
Hmm.
It's such an iconic area. You know what I'm talking about, Doom. There's it it's like when I think of Metroid Prime, I immediately think of Town Overworld and Phandrana Drifts, you know, and like the impact, but like Town Overworld, like it's such a perfect, like you said, a perfect, real introduction. Like, sure, the frigate is like kind of a tutorial, it's kind of the prologue. Town Overworld's where the game really starts, and I think that's like we were talking about earlier. I think that's when, if anyone had any doubts
Yeah.
about Metroid's transition to 3D, they were, no pun intended, washed away when they arrived at Town Overworld, and for good reason because it's one of the best designs in a game really ever, I think, especially for a game of that caliber and a game in that genre and style. I'm glad we were able to talk about it because it's incredible, foot to toe, soup to nuts. It's an awesome area. So yeah, love it.
Yeah, the artist of that piece you're referring to is a guy named Lightning Arts, I believe. He has a Redbubble page, and I believe you can actually purchase posters of that artwork that he's done, that panorama art. He also has like stuff from Super Metroid and Fusion as well, that coincided with Metroid Metal. He also did some stuff for the first Harmony of a Hunter album,
Hmm.
so some really cool stuff there. Yeah,
We need to do a
incredibly.
Metroid Metal episode. Not to cut you off, but we have to do a Metroid Metal episode, I think. And
Maybe we should see
I
if we
would be
can
totally
get
down for that.
Stemage on there for that.
I've seen
Yeah.
him. I saw them live in 2014 in San Francisco, so that was pretty dope.
so literally,
Nice.
we're approaching the tenth anniversary of the most recent track released. April 18th, 2013 was the Sector 4 release. By the way, Town Overworld was released November 15th, 2010. Um, what can we do to get them to make
Let's
another track?
let's
What
put
can
some
we do?
feelers out behind the scenes and get this done. But
What
do
do we-
finish
what do we
your
have to
Maybe,
do
finish
as
your
a
thought.
maybe
community?
tweet at him. I mean, Grant Henry, Stemage. I mean, he's still active on Twitter. So I mean, if you want more Metroid Metal, I guess
What do we
tell
have
him
to
how
do as
much
a
you love it.
community? I know but like he has to know. He has to know that everyone loves it. How do you like one more track for the one time, the decade? Come on, give me.
Watch. It's gonna be a dread track, Dak.
I literally, as I
It's
said
gonna be
that, as you were about to
Dairon.
say, I was like, please.
Yeah.
Maybe we should wait until Metroid Prime 4 comes out. Then when there's an inevitable banger OST, I'll be like, bro, for the one time, for old time's sake, please, one more Metro. Like, if I was rich, I would be bankrolling Metroid Metal.
Get
So
rich or die
I'm
trying.
working on it.
What are the
I'm
two?
working on it.
All right. Well, that is gonna do it, my friends, for this episode of Mapping Metroid. We promise we're not gonna make you wait another 6 months for the next edition of Mapping Metroid. We're gonna try and pump these out a little bit more quickly here. I loved this talk about the Tallon Overworld. It was fantastic. I think that nobody dives into an area in Metroid like we do on this podcast. So it was awesome and an awesome chat with you guys. And I hope that if you guys are watching on YouTube, you liked watching our faces and seeing some of our reactions and animations as we talk about one of our favorite areas in the Metroid Prime series. So yeah, let us know if you have any feedback or anything like that. In the meantime, we are going to get out of here. Of course, we want you to check us out over on Twitter at Omega Metroid Pod. I'm at Spiteri316. Dak is at Dak City _ and Doom is at Doominal Cross. Check out OmegaMetroid.com for all your Metroid needs, news, thought pieces, guides, maps, etc. You name it, it's there. We got something special that I'm working on too that should be live in the next little bit as well. So look forward to that. We are going to get out of here, but everybody, we will see you next week. Take care.